Going to talk a little UNLV now. We've got Andy Yamashita, who covers the Runnin' Rebels football team for the Las Vegas Review Journal. How you doing today, Andy? Thanks for doing this.
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. And I've had a couple of people say this. Runnin' Rebels is technically only the basketball team. The football team is just the Rebels.
I thought I might have put my tongue in my mouth as soon as or my foot in my mouth as soon as I said it. So
it's all good. I don't really know where it all comes from. All of the different teams have something different. The baseball team calls themselves like the Hustlin' Rebels, and so
okay.
you figure it out when you're out here. But yeah, I mean, it's just something like a little quirk, I guess, with the UNLV athletics department.
Yeah, always fun when the mascot is different from one team to the next.
I just call them all the Rebels
Yeah.
when I write.
Well, let me start with this, because obviously this game, no UNLV, first meeting between these programs, and it is here at Notre Dame, and obviously most games are traditionally on NBC. This is going to be on Peacock. Have you heard much blowback from UNLV fans out there? The fact that they're going to have to watch it on the old streaming service instead of broadcast TV.
I haven't had any fan emails about it in particular. I know obviously I get to go to the game, so it's not as big of an issue for me, but I know
right.
I'm a big soccer fan, and so sometimes I can't watch games that are on Peacock. So I understand that for certain people, if you don't have the streaming platform or anything, it's going to be a bit of a challenge to find it. I got a couple emails from NBC Universal promoting Peacock as the exclusive streaming partner and everything. So they're excited about it, I guess, and it'll be interesting to see. I haven't had any fan emails or anything like that about it, but from my own personal experience, it's definitely a bit of a challenge to find games once in a while. But yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see what happens Monday, or when you get back into town, and what the feedback is like afterwards, I guess, because Notre Dame, at least it happened once last year, so I think fans are, this will be the second streaming only game, so it's definitely different, but everyone's got to adapt, I guess. Kind of like you were just alluding to, when most people think of UNLV, I think the first thing that comes to mind, probably still, especially if you're closer to my age demographic, is Jerry Tarkanian and the Runnin' Rebels basketball, like the late 80s and early 90s success and all that. What's the football following like out there right now?
I think it's been dormant for years. They've been looking for success. They've been waiting for something to happen. They just built a new training facility, the Fertitta football facility at Rebel Park, which is really nice, has a lot of perks and a lot of the stuff that you'd expect at a Power 5 program, to be honest. And they play at Allegiant Stadium, which is obviously a beautiful facility. And there's definitely people here who are interested and who want UNLV football to be good. They've just been kind of waiting on any sign of optimism. This is a team that I believe won 2 games in the last 2 seasons. They already have 4 wins this year. So we're already seeing, a bit of a reignition, I guess, of the UNLV fan base. They've been waiting for something to happen. And they're like this for basketball too. They've been waiting for something good to happen with these programs for a while, and they're starting to trend in the right direction, but obviously these last 2 weeks have kind of been a bit of a speed bump in that progression.
Yeah, we'll get to that here in a second. I'm curious, though, again, this is the first meeting between Notre Dame and UNLV. You've got a program, or a school, as we've said, that's not thought of. It's a basketball school that's not thought of for football, and you're taking on one of the more iconic programs in college football history. Is there a lot of excitement, enthusiasm out there, just the fact that UNLV is coming out here?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was pretty clear amongst the players and amongst Merce Arroyo that the team is excited for this opportunity to play at South Bend, play in a historic stadium, play in front of a large crowd. I think Austin Ajike, the linebacker, said it best. They want to take this opportunity. They want to appreciate this opportunity. But the way that they've been talking about it, it's not just about being able to say we played Notre Dame. They want to be able to say we played well against Notre Dame. And, especially coming off, again, these last 2 weeks, they're looking for just anything that shows that they have something left for this final stretch of the season. And I think there's definitely an air of excitement. California is probably is the only other Power 5 team they've played this year. So this will definitely be a different step in terms of atmosphere and environment. And the other thing to remember is, a lot of these kids weren't highly recruited by big programs, or maybe they came from big programs and would love to get back to that environment. So I definitely think amongst the players, amongst the fan base too, a little bit, there's definitely some excitement for this game, whether UNLV plays well or not. I think that just the mythos of Notre Dame and Notre Dame football certainly isn't lost on people out here.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Marcus Arroyo, third year as the head coach out there right now. They really struggled his first couple of years, losing records. How would you describe him and the style that he has?
I mean, I think he's definitely learned a lot in the 2 years from the reporters who covered him early in his time here. Something he's pointed out multiple times is he really didn't get a full traditional football calendar until this year. An uninterrupted spring camp, an uninterrupted season, not worrying about COVID testing and everything like that as much, stuff like that. So he's found had his own growth, but also had more of a traditional opportunity, more of what he was expecting. He talked about this in spring too. He keeps binders of everything that happens on each day in spring. And he came out preparing for this spring football and realized he didn't have a binder for it because he'd never done it before, And so he was really excited about just getting a chance to do that. I'd say from his style, he wants to run the football. He's a former offensive coordinator from Oregon.
Right.
He's an offensive-minded coach. He's still the play caller. So he wants to establish the run a lot, and then that opens up their big playability. That hasn't been there the last 2 games, which has been a big part of why UNLV's lost by a combined 82-14 over the last 2 weeks. But right. I think, and then injuries, that's the other thing. But he's a charismatic guy. He's got a young coaching staff that seems engaged after having such a good start to the season. 2 weeks ago, people were talking about maybe there's a Mountain West Western Division title on the line here, and maybe they can go to the Mountain West championship game, and maybe the jump from 2-win team to a 8-win conference champion was a bit too big to expect from them, but 6 wins, bowl eligibility is still certainly on the table for UNLV. Yeah. And that would be a big achievement considering where they've been for the last couple years. So it'll be interesting to see not only how this Notre Dame game goes, but the next couple games after that to see if there is something to build on here and if there's some momentum.
Well, I did see some stuff before the season started, like hot seat type talk, because again, you had losing records the first couple of years and all that, 2-10 last year. If this season does unravel, especially to a greater extent, would he, is he coaching for his job maybe here down the stretch of the season?
I definitely think that's possible. I think the other thing to keep in mind with any kind of hot seat talk is that UNLV has a new athletic director, Eric Harper, who is a former football player. He's a football guy. And, he didn't, while he was here as one of the assistant athletic directors when Arroyo got hired, now he's in charge. Maybe he wants to go in a different direction. I definitely think bowl eligibility would be a huge step towards Arroyo certainly keeping his job. I don't see there's any way. I think 6 wins guarantees him at least another year. It will be interesting to see down the stretch. Again, health-wise, going to San Jose State, 6 wins looked super achievable. Now there's lots of questions. So
yeah,
I definitely think it's something to keep an eye on. And yeah, if they don't reach that 6-win mark, I think there will definitely be questions.
Well, and you alluded to it, losing by a combined 82-14 to San Jose State and Air Force the last couple of weeks after they had won 3 of their first 4 games, and the only loss was to the other Power 5 team that you talked about, Cal. So how did things really just unravel so quickly over these last couple of weeks?
Yeah, well, first off, I think it's, to be fair to UNLV, this is the toughest part of their schedule. San Jose State and Air Force, while they're not the powerhouse teams that Notre Dame fans might think of, have been 2 of the best teams in the Mountain West for the past several seasons.
Sure.
I think there was a lot of confidence in UNLV after they beat Utah State, who are the reigning Mountain West champions, in the first game of the Mountain West season. And then they come back. They go down 17-0 against New Mexico and come back. And it was like, oh, well, they can win in different ways. They beat the reigning champions, but New Mexico and Utah State haven't had good seasons since then. So these teams have definitely been the most difficult. And then it's come in the midst of just a huge rash of injuries for UNLV. They're missing 2 starting receivers. They're missing some D-line depth. They're missing, obviously, Doug Brumfeld at quarterback. So this Notre Dame game, maybe like 2 weeks ago, people were saying, maybe there's a non-zero chance UNLV can do something at Notre Dame, but it's just coming at a terrible time, both in terms of the difficulty, of their schedule and in terms of where they are health-wise as a team. So it'll be tough for them.
Well, and it looks like the biggest question they've got from the health standpoint is with the quarterback, Doug Brumfield, concussion protocol last week. Any status, that you've got on him right now and his availability potentially for Saturday?
He's still day-to-day. That's what they told us Monday at the post-game press conference. It'll be I don't personally see any reason to want to rush him back, besides the obvious safety concerns with concussions and how that has to be handled. UNLV, again, needs to scrape 2 wins across their final five games, I believe. And I don't see a point personally in rushing him back for this Notre Dame game when you're going to need him against rivals like Hawaii and Nevada, and you've got San Diego State coming up. So I haven't heard anything different. He's still considered day-to-day, but they definitely are missing him. Neither the quarterbacks who've filled in for him have had the same control over the offense that he did, had the same kind of chemistry. Friel is actually the reigning Mountain West Freshman of the Year because he got forced into action last year due to injuries, but he was injured through fall camp and hasn't had the reps because he hasn't been the starter. So they're definitely in a tough spot there. They would love to have Brumfield back. They could definitely use him, but yeah, I think his status is definitely still questionable.
Well, if he doesn't go, then do you think they use 2 quarterbacks, or do you think it's all Friel? What do you think is potentially the plan?
I still think it's Friel. He wasn't great in their last game against Air Force, but part of that was also just Air Force runs the option. They ran 79 plays and UNLV only ran 35. Friel completed 8 of his 10 passes, but the biggest problem he had was he had a fumbling problem. 2 fumbles and he threw an interception. Those turnovers pretty much backed up in his own end zone too, created a lot of scoring opportunities for Air Force's option play, and UNLV couldn't stop the dive. So I think Brad Roberts, the fullback, had 144 yards, 4 touchdowns, and on 29 carries. So you're not going to win with any of that happening.
Yeah.
And Arroyo was pretty clear that both he and Friel understand that. But that being said, I think there's a reason that Friel has gotten pretty much all the snaps since Brumfield was injured. I don't think they're ready to give Bailey the ball and really spin it like that yet. He's also he's a pocket quarterback, and in the past, UNLV has almost always operated with a dual threat quarterback. So I don't know if they feel maybe limited with that, but I don't see it changing if Brumfield doesn't play. I think Friel is still their guy. They just need him to take care of the ball better.
By the way, speaking of Air Force, we were just talking the other day on our show about the whole situation with the band and the referee going into the stands at the game. Were you aware of that going on when it happened, or did you know the referee was going into the stands when it happened?
I didn't actually. I couldn't really see it from where we were in the press box. I was like, why are we stopping? And then I saw it on Twitter, and I was like, oh, okay, well, why not? Sure, okay,
yeah,
I guess
might as well.
Yeah, college football, awesome.
That's right. Their defense. I mean, the thing that stands out about their defense is the 11 interceptions. How would you just describe the play on that side of the ball?
I think it's a very bend don't break approach. I think Keith Hayward, who Arroyo brought in, they coached together at Oregon. He was coaching, I believe, linebackers at Cal last year, has done a really good job just in terms of making it so that Arroyo doesn't have to think about that side of the ball. Again, he's already head coach and calling plays on offense. And in the past, it kind of seems like he had to worry about the defense a little bit too. And I think Hayward has done a good job of just taking that off his hands. It's someone he really trusts. I think it was a vote of confidence in Arroyo that they went out and got him from a Power 5 school and brought him out to UNLV. I think, again, their approach has been very bend, don't break. Take the secondary will gamble, and the linebackers will also, go for picks and coverage. But what was really helping them early in the season was they were getting a lot of pressure. But they lost their starting nose tackle in the first game of the year, and then one of their best edge rusher, Adam Plant, didn't play against Air Force. And Air Force doesn't throw the ball, so it didn't matter as much. But against San Jose State, for example, I mean, Chevin Cordero was a monster, had like 230 passing yards and over 100 rushing yards, and they couldn't contain him. The D-line couldn't contain him and keep him in the pocket. So that'll be something to watch. They've had trouble with mobile quarterbacks kind of all season, but I think, if they can get Plant back, and he was supposed to return to practice on Tuesday, and then they're going to evaluate him from there. They haven't specified what his injury is, but if they can get him back, that will help their defense massively, just because he brings, and to see if he can get pressure against an O-line as good as Notre Dame's. This will be the most athletic team that they've played all season, just almost across the board in every position. And it'll definitely be interesting. Their O-line is held up pretty well against every team except San Jose State. But, how will that fare against a Notre Dame pass rush? This is something very different from them on pretty much every level. So, that'll be something to watch for sure.
So what do you see maybe as the biggest question for them coming into this matchup?
Oh, the biggest question is definitely Brumfield's health.
Okay.
But if you want to go a little broader than that,
I'd say maybe beyond that then.
Yeah. I'd say it's more of just can they show just anything that gives you hope that they can get this thing back on track? Just can you avoid another blowout? 3 blowouts in a row would be, I think, just morally kind of heartbreaking for them after having such a good start and believing that maybe they could do something this year. I think Arroyo said in the past, you want to make sure that one loss doesn't hurt you multiple weeks, that it doesn't cause you to lose another game. And, now they've had 2 brutal losses in a row. I think you don't want to go 3 games giving up 40 points and scoring 1 touchdown. I think that should be kind of the goal for them, is really just can you keep it close? Can your offense find some kind of rhythm? Can your defense get a couple of good stops? I think against San Jose State, the punter had 7 punts. Can you maybe punt the ball 3 or 4 times instead of 7? I think that's kind of, to me, what I'm looking for. I'm sure they're obviously going in trying to win the game, but to me, I'm really looking at is there any sign that this team can put it back together and scrap 2 more wins in those last couple games?
Yeah, if it's any solace, Notre Dame has been a double-digit favorite 3 other times, and those games have not fared well for them. So, they've lost 2 of those 3, and the other one they squeaked one out against Cal. So, I don't know. We'll see how this shakes out. I think we're, sitting on this side, that there are just as many questions. It's one thing to say UNLV is a 24-point or 25, whatever it is now, point underdog, but like I said, Notre Dame's got some questions of their own and things they're trying to figure out. So I don't know what to make of this matchup from this end right now.
It'll be really interesting because I think after the Cal game, which UNLV certainly felt like they had a chance to win that game, the offense stalled out I think they didn't score the last 5 possessions, but one of those possessions they recovered an onside kick. And then the other one, I think they got down to Cal's 10 before turning it over on downs. So they definitely felt like they could have won that game. And I know, again, I'm from the Bay Area. I know Cal fans definitely felt like they should have won that game.
Sure.
So, or against Notre Dame. So there's definitely, I think around that time was the highest optimism of maybe UNLV can do something against the Irish. It's, maybe it's a non-zero chance that something crazy will happen. And these last couple of weeks have been a little bit of a reality check, but you never know what could happen. Maybe there's some inspiration being in Notre Dame and they pull something off, but we'll see. It'll be a fun day, even if maybe the score doesn't reflect that.
Maybe there's some symmetry in, like you're talking about, Cal felt like they should have won. There was obviously a lot of, the phantom offsides call and some other calls in that game. And then, of course, the Stanford game. I don't know if you saw it this past weekend, but there were a lot of Notre Dame people who were not happy about some calls coming out of that game either. So, and you get, of course, they're both big Bay Area rivals and all that kind of stuff.
For sure. This is kind of crazy. I haven't told this to any Notre Dame people. I went to high school with Aaron Banks.
Really?
The offensive lineman who's on the Niners now. Yeah, he went to El Cerrito High School, which is where I went. He was in my class. Great guy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Andy Yamashita from the Las Vegas Review Journal. Enjoy. Have a safe trip in, and we'll have to look you up in the press box definitely this weekend.
For sure. Thanks for having me. It's been great to talk.
Absolutely. Thanks for doing this.
All right.